Hello everyone, I'm Shaoxia from Kang University and my professor is Mun-Koo Kang. The title of my essay is The Causes of Pragmatic Failure from the Perspective of Bilingualism and its Implications for Foreign Language Teaching. There are 5 parts in my presentation today, that is background, introduction, and the main body is the causes of pragmatic failure and its implications for foreign language teaching, and the last part is conclusion. Now, let's look at the background of an introduction. Here, pragmatic theory came up in the 1950s and 1960s in the West, while in China, it is to be studied and developed in the 1980s and 1990s. Among many branches and concepts of pragmatics, pragmatic failure is an important aspect that cannot be ignored. Now, I will show you my essay through this PPT. The title of my essay is The Causes of Pragmatic Failure from the Perspective of Bilingualism and its Implications for Foreign Language Teaching. This is my catalog. There are 5 parts in this essay. First is background and introduction, and the main body is the causes of pragmatic failure and its implications for foreign language teaching, and the last part is conclusion part. Let's look at the background. As I mentioned, pragmatic theory came up in the 1950s and 1960s in the West, while in China, it is to be studied and developed in 1980s and 1990s for some historical excuse. Especially in the year 1984, scholar He Ziran, Ran Yongping, and other scholars began to study this theory. In recent decades, pragmatics made some developments. This paper will analyze the causes of this pragmatic failure and give some enlightenments on how to make efforts in teachers' teaching and the cultivation of pragmatic awareness in foreign language teaching. Introduction is Western studies have paid more attention to the comparison of the definition, types, causes, and consequences of cross-culture and elaborated its internal relations from the perspective of linguistics. While in China, there are some new perspectives. The scholars paid attention to speech acts and translation activities. And also there are some new perspectives of adaptation theory, cognitive perspective, pragmatic weakness theory, and empathy theory. The causes of pragmatic failure. First one is differences in cultural psychology. Cultures are different because of geographical location, natural environment, historical changes, religious beliefs, and economic development levels. So also the nation's traditions, thoughts, customs, emotions, and other factors are different. So we have to pay attention to people's differences in culture, thinking mode, values, and behavior norms to avoid the pragmatic failure. There are two concepts between West and East in culture. That is individualism and collectivism. Individualism enhances the self-awareness, human rights, equality, and personal privacy. But in China, collectivism means group orientation and abundance. For example, the 3 cardinal guides and 5 constant virtues. The cardinal guides means ruler guides subject, father guides son, and husband guides wife. The second cause is the differences in patterns of thoughts. Western thinking is analytical, individual, objective, and systematic. Eastern thinking is comprehensive, holistic, subjective, and non-systematic. Western pay attention to abstract thinking, while Chinese pay attention to imaginal thinking. Western prefer contrast thinking, while Chinese prefer uniform thinking. Western are accustomed to analytic thinking. Chinese are accustomed to synthetic thinking. Western like formal logic thinking. Chinese like dialectical thinking. Western like linear thinking. Chinese like curve thinking. The third cause of pragmatic failure is lack of pragmatic knowledge. The typical theory are Gray's cooperative principle, Leach's politeness principle, Brown and Levison's fifth-threaten theory. And if we lack of communicative competence, grammatical competence, textual competence, social linguistic competence, and conversational strategy competence will also lead to pragmatic failure. So the implications for foreign language teaching is, first one, pay attention to the cultivation of cultural awareness. For the bilingualism perspective, both teachers who teach Chinese students English and Chinese teachers who teach foreign students Chinese should conduct the students to respect and tolerate different cultures and recognize the differences between different cultures, understand each other's customs and habits, understand the identity, status, religious beliefs, and other sensitive issues in advance. The second implication for foreign language teaching is the input and output of pragmatic knowledge. There are 2 points for this implication. First one is, in different teaching stages, teachers should teach students different language behavior strategies and enrich them gradually. And second one, teachers should emphasize the importance of pragmatic behavior strategies as much as possible so that students can consciously use multi-language behavior strategies and gradually, correctly, and skillfully communicate with each other. The third implication for foreign language teaching is create real context through multimedia and network. Teachers should create a real language environment in the process of reading and communicate through classroom or extracurricular activities. Cultivate students' consciousness of thinking and communicating in the target language and provide students with more opportunities to read the original target language works. So let's move to the conclusion part. During the communication, we should respect each other's culture, be familiar with each other's culture, way of thinking, and national psychology as much as possible, such as the communication context, living environment of users, age, learning attitude, learning motivation, learning strategies, language level, classroom teaching methods, teaching materials, and other factors. In order to improve the learner's pragmatic competence, teachers should integrate the teaching of cultural knowledge, the input of pragmatic knowledge, the teaching activities based on context, and do more practices and output activities. At the same time, both teachers and students should pay more attention and do research on professional theoretical knowledge to avoid pragmatic failure, because pragmatic failure is much more serious than language failure. Here is my references, and thank you for listening today.